The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to the Heart of the Matter. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Many communities in rural areas like ours look to homegrown businesses as a source of new job growth. Entrepreneurship is exciting and new, but does it really hold up to the hype? On today's show, we look at whether entrepreneurship is the salvation of rural communities. Let's start right here.
If anyone understands the value of entrepreneurship to the regional and national economies, it's Linda Hall Keller. She's been involved in 9 startup companies during her career, including 2 in the social service arena and 2 in large Minnesota corporations, Honeywell and Ceridian. In 2002, Keller took over Minute Clinics from its founders and re-strategized and relaunched the business, which led to its 2006 acquisition by CVS Pharmacy for $214 million. She currently serves as entrepreneur in residence at the University of Minnesota's Carlson School of Management and at the University of Minnesota Rochester.
I would say that entrepreneurial spirit, small business startups, whether they're small businesses that never intend to grow beyond a single location and are more of a lifestyle business for the family, but more significantly, startups that intend to grow to 1 or 5 million in the next 2 years, 3 years, and expand nationally are definitely a major economic engine, because small businesses can create incredible breakthroughs in improved services, expanding people's life. It just can transform society to make life better for all of us. It not only creates jobs, but it creates opportunities for the companies themselves then need suppliers to provide them, and the whole value chain increases exponentially. The kinds of ideas that entrepreneurs come up with, often we think it's restricted to people that have intellectual property or some technology breakthrough, which is not at all the case. Most of the very successful startup businesses are a transformation of processes rather than any particular scientific breakthroughs. America does lead the world in entrepreneurship, especially when it comes to innovation, truly creative and truly new ideas. You know, in the last 30 years, just 20 successful startup companies have created 500 million new jobs. It's really quite amazing.
What can communities do to foster the growth of startup companies? Pam Bishop from the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation and Mark Olchefske from the Pappajohn Entrepreneurial Center talk with 2 entrepreneurs to identify key resources for making these young companies successful. Well, entrepreneurship is such an exciting field and people love talking about it, and I thank you all for joining us to have this conversation. Pam, I'm going to throw out to you the first question. Is entrepreneurship the salvation of rural economies?
Well, let me put it this way, Stephanie. We know that 70% of all entrepreneurial activity happens because it's in the backyard of a community. In other words, we know that there's innovation and entrepreneurship that exists in the streets and in the neighborhoods of every community, whether it's large or small. So in essence, yes, it's a key leg of the stool. We know that recruitment is important, we know retention is important, and we know that third leg is certainly entrepreneurship.
All right. Is that a greater challenge? Is that easier? You know, you've got those 3 legs. Which one is easier to accomplish?
They're all tough. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, in terms of recruitment, obviously you're chasing companies like every other community, large or small. And it oftentimes takes incentives and justification on why they should locate there. Entrepreneurship is more of a patient process because oftentimes we don't see them develop into sizable companies for many decades. And then retention. Well, in my opinion, retention is probably at the top in terms of what we can do to be proactive in keeping companies in the communities, helping them grow, and providing them the resources and tools to be strong, stable companies in all our communities.
And if you're looking at job growth, which of course is a big concern right now, your business retention and growth is going to be your greatest source of new jobs. But following surprisingly close behind is entrepreneurship, because those people have made a commitment to the community and want to remain within the community, so they build very stable businesses and also, again, create the second most common source of jobs. Attraction for those who get it, it's wonderful, they should celebrate it, but the reality is statistically it's not as big a driver of job growth as the other two.
All right. Larry, David, you guys come from the side of the table of you are the entrepreneurs, you have started your businesses. What's that like from your perspective in terms of fitting into the overall mix of an economic plan of a community?
Well, I think for me, one of my goals is to be an economic driver in the community, and I actually, as part of my plan for growth, is to how can I hire and maintain employees within the community that I'm from, because that's where I'm passionate, is about the community that I'm from, and so that's something that I really take to heart as an entrepreneur, is as I develop and grow my business, how do I best accommodate the community that I'm from? I don't know about for you, Larry?
Well, providing jobs for people has kind of been my passion too. I've been in sales for 15, 20 years, I guess. I was in Leroy, where I got to manage a company there. We headed up to 175 people at its peak. And I now have my own little business, and it peaked out this fall at almost 30. So I was very proud of that. It's slacked off again now, but peaks and valleys.
In terms of things that you gentlemen have needed over the course of developing your businesses, you've got folks in the professional development field. When you look at the tools, the resources that you need to start a business, what's most important to you? What do you ask these guys for help with?
Well, I think for me, and a lot of the entrepreneurs that I support with the network that I'm from, it's really just the culture of you can do it, just that support group. There are a lot of specific resources, financing, business plan development, marketing plan development, accounting and tax related stuff. But really, I think a lot of entrepreneurs just need that encouragement and support that you can do it, that we're behind you, and that if you do need anything, these resources like what Pam and Mark provide are available. And I think for me, that's the biggest thing, is just encouragement and motivation that you can do it.
For me, it was throwing caution to the wind and just going for it. And I worked with entrepreneurs for years too. And usually, like in my world, which is manufacturing, you have sales, production, and finance. I was pretty good at sales, okay at production, and finance I wasn't so good. So that's where you really need to have people to turn to if one of those three things are missing, and nobody's good at everything.
Smith is an organization that serves a wide region, as does Pappajohn. You guys are fairly broad. When someone's watching tonight and they're seeing what you're saying, and they're saying, why doesn't our community do that? What options are available to individual communities, especially in our region, many of which are small in population and small in resources, TIF districts and some of those tools. Let's talk specifically about what individual communities can do to help encourage entrepreneurship in their community.
When watching some of the communities that we get to work with, having a revolving loan fund, I mean, it's not as simple as saying, go get some money, but we have seen some small communities arrive at successful grant opportunities to actually achieve the starting of a revolving loan fund. Simply networking, like David's group, is just getting a bunch of entrepreneurs together on a regular basis and allowing them to share, I think, your experience. What you're doing.
You've probably heard from many in your group that have started up and I realize your area is Rochester centered, but
yeah, we have entrepreneurs from all over southern Minnesota, and it's interesting the diversity in the types of financing that our entrepreneurs, some are after government grants, others are after SBA loans. Many of our entrepreneurs are finding a lot of success with investors right now, as long as the plan is concrete and the entrepreneur really has their ducks in a row, and being much more creative about it. I've found that a lot of our entrepreneurs are being much more creative about how they structure deals with investors. They might have to give up a little bit more in terms of interest rates than you would a traditional financing option, but there definitely is investors out there who are ready and willing to help small entrepreneurs with financing.
One of the other things I was going to say, is helpful is securing skill sets that we might need. For me, it would be electronics, electronic technicians, assemblers. In the small rural area, there's sometimes not access to those people like there would be in the metro. So I had help with that.
We
too.
definitely hear that a lot from our entrepreneurs. You would think in this particular economy where unemployment is so high that it'd be so easy to go find the skills that you need, but I'll tell you, that's one of the biggest things that I hear from our entrepreneurs is they just can't find the skill sets they need. They're not accessible, or especially in smaller communities, because what we find is it's not a zero-sum game where somebody graduates and they have to go out, or they graduate high school and they go to the big community for college or whatever. They don't typically come back a lot of times. What we find is that the rural communities or smaller communities have kind of a lack of some of those technical capabilities that he may be looking for.
And to your point, there are a lot of different resources that are available to you, either as an entrepreneur running a business, like the small business development centers, like SCORE, like entrepreneur centers. But then at the same time, you also have other resources like your community college. If there are specific skill set gaps, in many cases, they are already training for those skill sets. So it offers an opportunity to find people who are trained or retrainable. We've had a lot of displaced workers in this area, and they're looking to get back into the workforce, and that's where the community colleges and the technical colleges have been a big driver of retraining our displaced workforce and getting them back to work.
Entrepreneurship is exciting, it's something new, and communities love to see that happen, but we have to acknowledge that on the flip side, some of those businesses don't make it. And David, I believe you have some figures for us to share about, what happens, what kind of success failure rate do we have?
I mean, the good news is historically, we believe that 95% of businesses are going to fail in the first 5 years, but current statistics now from the Center for Labor Statistics from the U.S. government and the SBA are showing that about 70% of small businesses are surviving at least 2 years, and 51% are surviving at least 5 years. So I think that's some very encouraging statistics that it's not quite this horror story that we're used to hearing. But nonetheless, there's still quite a failure rate, and there are a lot of reasons for that. Sure. That organizations like what Pam and Mark do, the services that they offer can help focus on what those particular items are that might cause failures or common failures, and help identify those ahead of time so they don't happen to entrepreneurs.
We actually did a study over the first 10 years of our existence, and what we discovered was those that were engaging with us and doing some of the entrepreneurial training that we were recommending and continuing to have a relationship with our center, but you would expect to see similar results with PAMS or any other technical assistance provider. We were actually flipping those numbers around. We had seen 78% survival over the previous 10 years. So it is possible. Now at the same time, certain types of businesses have a high mortality rate and certain types of businesses have a low mortality rate. A manufacturer like Larry has a very good chance of surviving for an extended period of time. Other ones like restaurants or entertainment venues have generally a poorer than average chance of survival. Okay. So you have to take all the figures into account as far as what are they're dealing with large gross numbers. When you start looking at it from an industry standpoint, you'll get different results.
All right. From both perspectives, is there a benefit, and I know we like to think they're all going to succeed when we have a good idea and we get started, is there a benefit, and maybe do you require an exit plan? A plan in place for what happens to your financiers when a business fails?
Well, at least for me, I work with a lot of investors, and one of the primary focuses of my business plan is that contingency for what's going to happen if what I plan doesn't work out. And so I always look at what are my stop gaps, or what are the ways that my investors in a poor situation still benefit. So what's kind of the best of the worst case scenario for my investors, and that's typically why they're interested in investing, is because I've shown them in potential failure, this is how I can help protect your investment.
You've got them covered. Very good. Well, this is an exciting area, and it's great to see that some of those numbers are turning around, and that the connection with organizations such as yours sometimes makes the difference. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, I teach now at the University of Minnesota Carlson, and I think before I might have said entrepreneurship can't be taught, it just must be, you must be born with it, and I no longer agree with that. I do think there's certain personality characteristics that are required, and I would consider certainly resilience, determination, and high energy to be essential characteristics. I also think a sense of optimism, that you can do something and have a very strong results orientation. Also a determination to remain focused. One of the challenges entrepreneurs face is that we are quite creative people and are always seeing opportunities. And of course you can never be successful with your business if you're not very focused and strategic and not trying to boil the ocean, as it were. Clearly another characteristic that's required of an entrepreneur is the ability to attract and retain a high-performance team. You know, it's often thought that entrepreneurs were a little odd, we're not very social, but we have to be very social creatures in order to attract funders, customers, people that want to work with us. Another myth about entrepreneurs is that they're all very young. I did my first standalone company when I was in my 50s. And as it turns out, in the last 10 years of American-born entrepreneurs, more than twice were over 50 than were under 25. In fact, it's most common for someone to become an entrepreneur after they've had 10 years experience in their industry.
So far, we've learned that support in key areas such as technical advice, bookkeeping, marketing, skill sourcing can make the difference between success and failure for businesses in the first 5 years. Let's turn now to the day-to-day nuts and bolts of what it's like to be an entrepreneur as we continue our conversation with David Hewitt and Larry Erickson. Well, gentlemen, we've talked a little bit about the big picture of economic development and where entrepreneurship kind of fits in there and some of the tools that you guys need in terms of financing and resources. But let's talk a little bit about what it really takes to generate that idea and to work so hard and so long on seeing it come to fruition. And Larry, what made you decide to start your own business? How did it begin?
An opportunity presented itself about 15 years ago. I guess I was doing sales for Leroy Products, and I was traveling to the different industrial parks throughout Minnesota and contacting manufacturers to do assembly work. The company I worked for couldn't accept anymore, so I asked the owner, well, here's discretionary income for a lot of people. Do we have to let it go? Could I take some of it and put people to work in the area and keep it right here in southeastern Minnesota? And my employer was gracious enough to say yes. So in 1995, I started collecting purchase orders and farming them out to people locally, and that's how it started.
Okay. So it was an offshoot of your then current employment?
Yes.
All right.
It's quite different for me. I'm kind of one of your born wired entrepreneurs, you know, the kind that, you know, wake up in the middle of the night with ideas and try to think I can do every idea that comes to my mind. And, you know, so as a kid, I would buy and sell bicycles to earn money. So I kind of had that, you know, entrepreneurial passion, you know, my whole life, and graduating from college, I, you know, worked in a large corporation thinking I wanted to climb the corporate ladder, and soon after 3 months of that job realized, wow, this is just not for me. And from then on, I've just basically been starting businesses, and I've sold businesses, and that's just my passion, just kind of constantly hammering it out and moving forward with new ideas. So that's kind of me. I'm just totally wired differently than anybody else, you know.
And so Larry, when did you decide to make the break and have it be your own company? Because there is a certain mindset of, I want to be independent, I want to do it my way, that entrepreneurs have, and what tells you you're ready for that?
Well, I was put in a position in 2002 where I had to do one thing or another, and I decided to go it on my own, and that's when you know, that's when I really had to go to work. Because I was carrying 2 jobs. I was employed by somebody, plus I had my own business. And then when you decide to throw caution to the wind and do it for yourself, then you know, you can't hold back.
So what does that mean? Change in lifestyle. It's all on your shoulders. What would an entrepreneur have to look forward to, or not, depending on your perspective?
Well, I mean, the entrepreneur, particularly the startup entrepreneur, you know, you're everything. You know, the bookkeeper, the marketing person, the salesperson. You know, you make your own coffee. You know, you're everything. And eventually, hopefully, you can get to the point where you bring in good people to help you with those things, or you use resources like what we talked about earlier. Yeah, that definitely is. I don't know if that's something to look forward to. It's a lot of work, and a lot of times it doesn't go real well, and you have a real tough family work balance, and also it becomes integration. It's a lifestyle, so it's no longer you go 9 to 5 and you're done. It's pretty much all the time.
I can agree with that and support that, because I've got a lot of friends that have started their own business, and they'll tell you the same thing. It's sacrifice. Your wife has to buy into it. The kid's got to pay for it for the time the dad spends, not at the events. It's tough. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think is the greatest obstacle as you guys have pursued your different interests? What's the hardest part?
For me, I guess the path I've chosen is I love working with startups. And if I had to do it over again from day one, probably would not, because typically the startups don't have the cash or the resources to get you where you want to go, to get themselves where they want to go. Okay. It's my passion, so I do it. But I've talked to other contract assembly houses, and they'll just say flat, no, we don't work with startups. So, that's kind of sad, but I love the enthusiasm and the people that have an idea and are going to run with it. So.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest challenge is, well, first of all, picking an idea. You have a lot of ideas, and it's how do you know which one is the right one to really invest your time and energy into. But then I think a lot of it is what I talked about earlier. It's just that cultural mentality that we have in the Midwest, which is different than California, where you went out and tried it, sweet, you failed, no big deal, go do it again. Here it's like if you start a business and it doesn't go well, I told you so type of mentality. It's not. You don't really have that culture that is really on board and favors the individual going out and taking those risks or those chances. It's more that it's okay to have that secure job. So
do you find it harder to pursue the next idea then if that first one didn't work out?
Well, I guess for me, this is sort of an opinion, but as a pure entrepreneur, I'm not averse to risk. Right, that's not part of my mentality. So if something doesn't work out, we tend to have the ability to just go and work on the next thing and almost forget the fact that you didn't succeed, you know what I mean? Right. Because you have that internal drive that you want to succeed and that you need to make it work, and a lot of that's survival. If you're out there trying to do it on your own and you have to pay bills and take care of your family, you're going to do what it takes, and you have to actually accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. Otherwise, nobody's going to be happy.
Nobody's going to be happy.
So yeah.
That's a lot of pressure to place on the shoulders of an individual who's trying to start a company. I'm interested in the Rochester Entrepreneurs Network and the value that is obtained by folks who just get together to talk. Yeah. You guys get together once a month, is that right?
The Rochester Entrepreneur Network is a group of over 100 entrepreneurs from all over southern Minnesota, and it's really different than other kind of business or network groups where it's almost like a support group. We come together because it's like a lot of people who are into football, they get really excited about Sunday football and that's all they want to talk about and so forth. Well, we're excited about business and we want to help each other become more successful in our business. And so we get together and we have education, we provide motivation, encouragement for each other, we go over our goals throughout the year, and then we network. And so it's really a good opportunity for people who just have ideas all the way through folks who have mature businesses to really come together and encourage each other and kind of be that supportive network that doesn't really exist in the Midwest.
Minnesota Angel Network on their website talks about the most important investment in you as entrepreneurs is education for future success. What kind of education was most important to you?
For me, I took a year of accounting at the college here to make up for the finance area that I was so slack in. So,
yeah, I think for me, I learned more after college. I graduated with a business administration degree, and I can tell you I learned more about business outside of college. And I think the best education I had was just getting out there and doing sales, getting those rejections. A rejection goes a long way for your education because you can analyze, what you may have done wrong and figure out how you can get an acceptance next time.
And how do you let that rejection not kill your plans?
Yeah.
Well, how do you keep a positive attitude? What kind of things that you do to stay up?
Well, for me, if you got a no, it's to sit back and I wasn't prepared, or I didn't know this, or I didn't know that. It was, you want to get that yes, you want to get that purchase order, you want to get going, And so typically, now this is something I don't know if everybody does, but I kind of think they do for people in small business that have their own businesses. The answer is always yes. If you don't have the resources, the capital, if you don't have a plan to do it, you get it together. But the answer is yes, and then you go get it done.
Yeah, we had a professional speaker come to the Rochester Entrepreneur Network. His name is Mark Olchefske, and he talked about failure. You know, a lot of people have the mentality that you have to, you know, it's either failure or succeed. You know, failure or success. But really, you know, the attitude should be you almost have to go through failure to achieve success. And you know that, and how you analyze that failure. So for me, you know, I always believe there's a solution to everything, but you're going to have those times where things just don't work out. And so it's really, how do you step back and analyze what happened?
All right, keep your head up sounds like the answer.
Pretty much. Yeah.
All right, very good. Thanks so much for sharing your personal stories and giving us some insight to the world of an entrepreneur.
Well,
Thank you, Stephanie.
Perseverance is a key attribute in the pursuit of entrepreneurial success, and really a good reminder for all of us. As David and Larry mentioned, there are many ups and downs as we head toward our goals. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Please join us next time on The Heart of the Matter as we continue to focus on the issues that matter most to you and the people who make this region work. For more information on entrepreneurship, you can contact the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation or the Pappajohn Entrepreneurial Center.